Before we begin today's video, I'd like to give a shout out to one of our newest subscribers, Nerd Arcanix. Thank you for subscribing, and welcome to the family. And now on with today's video. Greetings, my dear viewers. It is I, Dragon, and welcome back to Pathfinder Hero Flux. That is Flux, short for fluctuation, where we take a character from across media and drop them into Pathfinder 2nd Edition as a playable character. Now, this is more for the dungeon masters out there, but I thought it would be a fun little experiment for a playable character. But I wanted to take a look at the Draconians from the Dungeons & Dragons campaign setting, Dragonlance. What are Draconians? Well, Draconians are a race of dragonoid-like humans, or human-like dragons. They are created by subjecting a dragon egg of any color, doesn't matter if it's a chromatic dragon egg or a metallic dragon egg. However, the main 5 types of Draconians are from a metallic dragon egg. This dragon egg is subjected to dark magic known as the Corruption Ritual. This ritual was first created by the dragon goddess herself, Tachesis. One dragon egg will yield dozens of Draconians of the given type. From birth, these new Draconians are taught that the world is cruel, humans are to be hated, and dragons are to be revered. They are forced to fight over scraps of rotten meat given to them by their human caretakers, ensuring that only the strongest survive. And by the time they are ready to join the dragon armies, they will have little regard for human life. But with that being said, what are the main 5 Draconians? Like I said, the main 5 Draconians are what happens when you subject a metallic dragon egg to the corruption ritual. We have the spellcasters known as Auroch, which are gold dragons. Then we have the foot soldiers, Bars, created from the brass dragon egg. Next is the Bozak, the Eldritch Knights, not as magically inclined as their Auroch brethren, but they do possess that bit of magical power. These are created from the bronze dragon eggs. Next is Kapak, devastating assassin-like Draconians who have their venom glands still intact, and upon death will dissolve into a pool of acid. And then we have Sivak, or the Silver Draconians, the largest and most dangerous of all Draconians, and the subject of today's video. The Sivak Draconians are dangerous because of their ability to take the shape of the person they have killed. Now, in older editions of Dungeons & Dragons, it is stated that the Draconian will only take on the shape of an individual who killed them. What edition this was, I do not know, and I do not know why it changed from that to the Sivak stealing the identity of whoever they kill. If you are a Dragonlance fanatic, please let me know down in the comment section below, and let me know which ability you prefer more. Personally, I do think that the changing of shape after death is very dramatic. It makes you feel like you cannot trust your own party member now, at least for a few minutes. As this Draconian just took on your form, but you're standing right here. Is this an illusion? Was the Draconian itself an illusion? Who knows? But I will say that I grew up with the ability of shape theft, even before 5th edition was released. And why I often confuse Takesis for Tiamat. I only knew Tiamat. I never knew Takesis. Anywho, let's go ahead and begin with our creation. Now, I do have the 5th edition stat block for the Draconian Dreadnought, which was released in Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, later updated to Kryn, Shadow of the Dragon Queen, with the Sivak Draconian title. So this is going to be as close as we are getting to an actual Sivak. So let's go ahead and try to convert these stats over into Pathfinder 2nd edition. Starting things off with our stats is going to be a 12 in Constitution, Strength, Intelligence, and Charisma. Since we are talking about a being who was created by manipulating the genetic code of another being, specifically the Silver Dragon, we are going to need the ancestry of the Flesh Warp. But since we are still draconic in nature, we are going to need the heritage of the Dragon Blood. Thanks to the Flesh Warp ancestry, we get 10 hit points, we are a size medium, our speed is 25 feet, for languages we have access to Common, plus our intelligence modifier. Thanks to our heritage, the Dragon Blood, we can choose Draconic. We also have access to Unusual Anatomy, Low Light Vision, and for our free feat we have Oddity Identification, and we're going with the Ancestry feat of the Occult Dragon Blood. For our Draconic Exemplar, we do not have Silver Dragons in the remaster of Pathfinder 2nd edition. They are a part of the pre-remaster, but we do not have them in the current version, the update. So the closest we have is the Occult Dragon Blood, the Draconic Exemplar of the Conspirator Dragon, which gives us the trained skill of Occultism. With Oddity Identification, it's not that good of an ability, but you become aware of a magical effect or see a spell being cast, you immediately determine if it twists minds, fights against fortune, or reveals secrets. It is kind of ironic considering the Sivak Draconian's ability to warp its own body, disguise itself, to fit with its new disguise, but it's pretty useful. Moving on to background. The closest we have to a background where your form is affected by a dragon god in some form of dark ritual is, of course, Touched by Dahak, the main evil dragon god of Pathfinder 2nd edition. We'll go more into detail on the story of Dahak and the other two dragon gods when we cover Pathfinder's version of Draconians. But for now, we are going with the background of Touched by Dahak, which will give us an increase to our strength and to our charisma, and we'll become trained in athletics and dragon lore, and get the free feat of Titan Wrestler. If you do not like this background, and I do not blame you, an alternative background you can choose is the Magical Experiment. I chose this as an alternate background because, technically speaking, the Draconians did have a predecessor. Specifically for the Sivaks, we have the Sisk Draconian. Once again, coming from the Silver Dragon eggs, these are the predecessor of Sivaks. Moving on to our class, we are going to be picking Fighter. This is because the Sivak Draconians, being the larger ones, were more suited for combat. They were the infantry, if you will. Not simple foot soldiers, more like higher ranking soldiers. So it would make perfect sense for them to take up the fighter class. This will increase our strength to an 18, give us extra hit points equal to 10 plus our constitution modifier. For your class feat, I would recommend the Vicious Swing. And we also gain access to the Shield Block feat for absolutely free. We are experts in Perception. For our saving throws, we are trained in Will and are experts in Fortitude and Reflex. For your skills, you'll be trained in Acrobatics, Deception, Diplomacy, Intimidation, and Stealth. For your attacks, you are trained in Advanced Weapons and are an expert in Simple, Martial, and Unarmed attacks. For your defenses, you will be trained in All Armor and Unarmored Defense. Thanks to the feat Vicious Swing, when you make a melee attack with this feature, it will count as 2 attacks when calculating your multiple attack penalty, and if it hits, you deal an extra die of that weapon's damage. If you're at least 10 level, increase this to 2 extra dice. And if you are at least 18th level, increase it to 3 extra dice. So it is a very useful feature that works perfectly for our Draconian. Moving on to level 2, we're going to go ahead and try to get as close to the Sivak's ability to steal another person's identity with the class feat of Alter Ego Dedication, giving us access to the ability Assume a Role. We're also going to grab the skill feat of Assurance for our Deception. Moving on to Fighter level 3, we're going to get access to Expert skill in Athletics with the feat Ancestral Paragon, giving us access to the Ancestry feat of Living Weapon, which should be used for a tail attack. Next, we have access to Bravery. At level 4, go ahead and grab the class feat of Fake It Till You Make It, and the skill feat of Change of Face. Fake it till you make it. When you take on a role, you become more capable with all sorts of tasks involving the role. When you assume a role, choose 2 skills associated with the role in some way. If you're untrained, you can use your level as your proficiency bonus for those skills, and you gain a +1 circumstance bonus to skill checks and those skills as long as you remain in that role. You and your GM determine which skills you assume. For Change of Face, you know that for the best disguise to work, one requires not only the right skills, but also the right look. Luckily, you can copy both using special magical techniques. When you impersonate, you don't need a disguise kit. Instead, simple illusions and temporary transmutations ripple over your body like mirror shards, providing the supplies that the kit ordinarily would. When you impersonate in this way, your impersonate gains the occult trait. Very useful ability. Perfect for our Sivak's disguise. Moving on to level 5, go ahead and increase your strength by 1, your Constitution, Wisdom, and Charisma each by 2. You are now an expert in Stealth, and we're going for the Ancestry feat of Dragon's Flight. The Sivak Draconian is the only one of the 5 Draconians who can actually fly with their wings. So it makes perfect sense for us to have the ability to fly as a Sivak Draconian. We also gain access to Fighter Weapon Mastery. We're going with the Axe. Since that one image that we showed earlier did have a Sivak wielding such a weapon. Moving on to level 6, go with the class feat of Shatter Defenses and the skill feat of Catfall. With Shatter Defenses, your offense exploits your enemy's fear. Make a melee strike against a frightened creature. If you hit and deal damage, the target becomes off guard until its frightened condition ends. If the target was already off guard to you when you damaged it with this strike, it can't reduce its frightened level below 1 until the start of your next turn. A very useful ability indeed. Moving on to level 7, we are now masters in athletics. We're going to grab the feat, Fleet. Next you have access to Battlefield Surveyor and Weapon Specialization. Moving on to level 8 fighter, we're going with the class feat of Felling Strike and the skill feat of Backup Disguise. With Felling Strike, your attack can ground an airbound foe. Make a strike. If it hits and deals damage to a flying target, the target falls up to 120 feet. The fall is gradual enough that if it causes the target to hit the ground, the target takes no damage from the fall. If the attack is a critical hit, the target can't fly, leap, levitate, or otherwise leave the ground until the end of your next turn. It's a slow fall, but you knock a flying opponent out of the air. Useful for when you want to be the only one in the sky. Moving on to Fighter level 9, we are experts in diplomacy, and we're going to grab the Ancestry feat of True Dragon's Flight. We also have access to Battle Hardened, and we're going to gain access to Combat Flexibility, giving us access to Double Slice. At level 10, go ahead and increase your Dexterity, Constitution, and Charisma each by 2, and increase your Strength by 1. For your class feat, go ahead and grab Winged Warrior Dedication, and your skill feat, Charming Liar. Moving on to level 11, we are now Masters in Deception. For our feat, we're going with Incredible Initiative. We also have access to Armor Expertise and Fighter Expertise. Moving on to level 12, grab the class feat of Thunderous Landing. You hurl away enemies with the force of your landing. You fly, and if you end your movement on a solid surface, your landing sends out a shockwave of air. Each creature within 10 feet of your landing position must succeed at a reflex saving throw against your class DC, or be pushed 10 feet away. This is forced movement. For your skill feat, it makes perfect sense to go with Double Speak. You're skilled at saying one thing and meaning something different. You'll disguise your true meaning behind other words and phrases, relying on subtle emphasis and shared experience to convey meaning that only your allies understand. Perfect if you are a agent of Dark undercover. Going on to Fighter level 13, we are experts in Intimidation, and now we'll have the full effect of the Sivak Draconian with Draconic Veil. Like some dragons, your forebearer had the supernatural ability to change their shape to walk among humanoids. You have learned how to mimic this ability. You cast humanoid form as a 5th rank innate spell once per day, except that the duration is increased to 1 hour. Not perfect, but it works. This spell's tradition matches your Draconic exemplar. And since we are 13th level fighter, we have access to Weapon Legend. Go ahead and pick Sword. Moving on to level 14, the class feat we will pick is Battering Wings. And for our skill feat, we are going with Quick Disguise. Moving on to level 15, Fighter. Go ahead and increase your Strength and your Charisma each by 1, and increase your Intelligence and Wisdom each by 2. We are now trained in Performance. We are experts in Acrobatics. For our feat, we are going with Die Hard. For your improved flexibility, go for Desperate Finisher. You throw everything you have into one last reckless press. Use a single action that you know with the press trait. You forego the ability to use reactions until the start of your next turn. This press uses your multiple attack penalty as normal. You also have access to greater weapon specialization and tempered reflexes. At level 16, we get the class feat of Slam Down and the skill feat of Half Truths. Moving on to level 17, we are experts in performance, and we are going with the ancestry feat of Wing Buffet. We also have access to Armor Mastery. Level 18, we're going to grab the class feat of Overwhelming Blow. You throw your weight into a powerful attack that leaves you vulnerable. Make a melee strike. This counts as 3 attacks when calculating your multiple attack penalty. If this strike hits, you get a critical hit. If you roll a critical hit, your weapon or unarmed attack also gains the Deadly D12 trait. This replaces any deadly trait it already has. Whether or not you're hit, you become stunned 1, and are off guard until the start of your next turn. For your skill feat, we will also grab Powerful Leap. At level 19, we are now masters in acrobatics, and will grab the feat of Toughness. Since we are a level 19 fighter, we also have access to Versatile Legend. And to cap off this video, we are going with the level 20 fighter to increase our strength and charisma each by 1, and grabbing 2 more points in dexterity and wisdom. For our class feat, we're going to end our disguise in the most dramatic way possible with the class feat, It Was Me All Along. You discard a disguise and dramatically reveal your true identity, catching your foes off guard. If you created your disguise using magic such as with humanoid form or illusory disguise, you immediately dismiss the spell as a free action. Stride up to your speed and attempt a deception check to feint 1 target within 30 feet. If you succeed, you roll twice and take the better result on your first attack roll against the target this turn. We are also going to grab the skill feat of Assurance for Athletics. And there we have it. We have the Sivak Draconian as a playable character in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. What did you think? Let me know in the comment section down below. Also let me know in the comment section down below if you would like to see another Draconian from Dungeons & Dragons roster. Until next time, this has been Dragon, and I am offline.